Learning is another cognitive ability that tends to be more intuitive than others, and knowing techniques for developing new habits, behavioral patterns, and various skills can help you to build self-confidence and prevent a decline in mental and physical health. Response strengthening is a process of strengthening a response with repeated exercise. In some ways, neural connections are like muscles that strengthen with repeated effort. When the brain attempts to encode a new memory, it usually begins with a first attempt. If that attempt fails, the person may continue trying until the brain eventually succeeds and produces the correct response. A habit is a response triggered by a biological or environmental cue, and habits can shape character, personality, and reputation in many ways. All of a person's habits, including work habits, study habits, social habits, and thinking habits, can dramatically alter the way a person behaves and the way that person is perceived. And over time, bad habits can cause a decline in mental and physical health. Suppose Rohan wants to start an exercise regimen. The most important part of habit formation is the cue. As Rohan responds to the cue, i.e. the time of day, his responses become more habituated and automatic over time. This sounds relatively simple, but habit formation can be disrupted for many reasons. One reason is that the activity itself may be too difficult, painful, or strenuous. If Rohan plans to run 10 miles every Saturday, and he's never attempted to run 10 miles, he could injure himself, and the pain he experiences may discourage him from trying again, which would disrupt habit formation. So ideally, Rohan should start in his comfort zone and only run a few miles. Once the habit is established, he could gradually increase the level of intensity as needed. The complexity of the task may also disrupt habit formation. A simple task, like answering a call, only requires one step, but preparing a healthy meal is more complex because it requires following a precise recipe. Yet even a complex task can be habituated and sequenced in memory with practice and repetition. As the task is repeated, the responses become encoded into the neural pathways of the brain, which decreases the amount of mental effort required to perform the task. Knowledge itself could be a barrier to habit formation. Without knowledge about healthier options, for example, it becomes difficult to make healthy choices. Suppose Matteo wants to start eating healthier, more nutritious meals. He knows that lettuce, broccoli, cucumbers, and celery are all healthy. However, when he eats those vegetables, they taste bland and leave him feeling starved, sapped of energy, and mentally distracted. So he ends up at the fast food drive-thru, eating junk food and drinking soda pop. The only reason Matteo fails to develop healthier habits is because he doesn't know about healthier options. Until he learns about how to make nutritious food that is also satisfying and delicious, he will never succeed in changing his habits. And if you need a healthy, delicious, and satisfying recipe, check out my kale stir-fry recipe in the appendix at the end of my book, mentioned at the end of this video. Ending undesirable habits is just as difficult as creating new ones. Habituated responses do weaken and atrophy with disuse, but old habits die hard. They may take months, years, or decades to be forgotten. That's because habits are deeply rooted in the brain and have neural connections that remain long after they are used. This is why unhealthy thinking patterns, such as terrible lifestyle habits and behavioral disorders, are notoriously difficult to change. Ending old habits and developing new ones takes a considerable amount of time trying, failing, and trying again until success is eventually achieved. It usually doesn't happen by inspiration or by making a different choice. People develop distinct behavioral patterns or habits that influence how they think and behave as they adapt to situational demands. Usually, behavioral patterns improve a person's ability to handle similar situations in the future. However, people may also develop unhealthy behavioral patterns that are detrimental to their mental or physical health. Behavioral patterns that trigger emotional distress or anxiety would be considered unhealthy behavioral patterns. These patterns may develop as a result of persistent adversity, substance use, or a mental disorder, and they can motivate poor choices such as committing an act of road rage, aggressive driving, hate-filled rants on social media, self-harm, or a mass shooting. Each of these extreme behaviors are driven by a pattern of very negative thoughts and emotions that over time cause a decline in mental health. So to maintain mental and physical health, it's important to reduce unhealthy behavioral patterns, and that can be accomplished by changing daily routines, learning to handle emotional distress differently, and applying other techniques mentioned in other videos. A skill is a learned response that may be strengthened to improve the effectiveness of performance. Shooting an arrow or solving a math problem are skills that can be improved with practice. In this way, skills are like mind muscles that grow stronger or weaker depending on use. Employers sometimes underestimate the amount of knowledge or skill required to competently perform a role. Consider the field of information technology, where according to a Harris poll conducted in 2020, 38% of state and local government employees said that they were not fully trained in ransomware prevention. This comes after more than 100 cities across the United States were attacked with ransomware the previous year. That's a significant problem when considering that during 2025, the average cost of a ransomware attack in the United States was between $5 million to $6 million. That same year, ransomware attacks cost U.S. businesses about $27 billion collectively. Ideally, organizations employ IT managers and professionals who have the right education and experience to build secure and maintainable systems. Trained managers are able to evaluate skills, recognize the value of education, and know whether the department is following best practices. Over time, those skills reduce costs, make IT projects more manageable, and prevent cyber attacks. With the right training and expertise, many ransomware attacks are completely preventable. Even if one did occur, with basic training about backup technologies, all of those systems could be completely restored in a matter of days, if not hours, without ever having to pay a penny in ransom. This makes good information technology skills valuable, especially when it comes to protecting the business from cyber attacks. Most skills have a learning curve, which is the amount of time, effort, and knowledge required to fully develop a skill. And that learning curve may be short, like learning how to bake a cake by watching an online video. Or it could be time-consuming and complex, such as learning how to perform brain surgery. One of the earliest models of the learning curve comes from psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus during the 1880s. In Ebbinghaus's model, the learning curve represents knowledge accumulation over a period of time. In 1936, Theodore Wright published his own version of the learning curve in an article entitled Factors Affecting the Cost of Airplanes in the Journal of Aeronautical Sciences. Instead of measuring knowledge accumulation, Wright's model applied to management science and measured the rate of production. It measured more specifically the efficiency and performance gains made by repeating a task. To better understand this idea, suppose Lucas is hired to assemble chairs at a furniture manufacturer. As he assembles his first chair, he has to think through each step or ask questions so he doesn't make a mistake. As he assembles each additional unit, his brain sequences each step into memory, which reduces the amount of time it takes to build each chair from 10 minutes to 3 minutes. People often like to say, practice makes perfect. But according to many studies, skills and expertise can become good enough so that no additional effort will yield further improvement. Psychologist K. Anders Ericsson, a longtime researcher of expertise, makes the argument that repeated practice has limitations when it comes to improving skills and expertise. The problem, according to Ericsson's research, is that when a person repeatedly performs a fully developed skill, that person never learns anything new, and the skill never improves no matter how many years it is performed. So when striving to improve skills or expertise, according to Ericsson, stay laser focused on improving weak abilities. That means learning about unfamiliar subjects or attempting to perform unfamiliar tasks that cause you to make mistakes. Only by learning from those mistakes will you see measurable improvement. A routine is an activity performed on a regular basis, such as a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. And all people make routine choices that have a compounding effect on their mental and physical condition. Regimens are prescribed routines designed for personal development, and they could be designed to target many different areas needing improvement, including physical fitness, mental fitness, and personal relationships. If you want to extend your mobility and longevity, try the weekly exercise regimen in the appendix at the end of my book. Thank you for watching this video. These topics and many more can be found in my recent book entitled Decision-Making Skills, a guide to handling uncertainty, driving results, and cultivating well-being.